Good afternoon. I'm Valerie Milano, the senior editor of the Hollywood Times. I'm here in Phoenix, Arizona right now, but I'm back and forth to Hollywood for Dances with Films, Frameline in San Francisco, and Palm Springs for the Palm Springs Short Film Festival. And I would like my guests to introduce themselves. Thank you so much.
Hi, thank you so much for having us. My name is Alec. I am one of the writers, directors, producers, editors, and I was also the lead sound designer, colorist. And
Love
I'm just gonna stop there because I did all of those things, and that's enough. Um, and I'm currently in Long Beach, California. That's where the movie was shot as well. So kind of all local, and we're still all here, or I'm still all here at least.
Hi, again, thank you for having us. I'm Kevin Mix. I also wrote, directed, produced, edited, um, starred. I'm in the movie. I play Sean in the movie, and right now I'm actually in Irvine at the moment. Uh, but um, but yeah, we live, if not in Long Beach, around the area, and that's predominantly where we shot the movie. So
Hi, I'm Nicole Murray. I am the producer as well as I play Anna in Death Perception. First one to say the film name here.
Oh, right,
Oh,
the
that's
film.
good.
oh right, we made a movie.
And I am located in Los Angeles, California.
Cool. I'm Sam Slade. I co-directed, co-wrote, co-edited, co-produced Death Perception as well. And I'm also in Long Beach, California.
Yay. Thank you all. I always say the more the merrier, so I appreciate you all being here. And this is for like the director and the writers, please. And, like what inspired you to create Death Perception? Was there a specific event or idea that sparked the concept of the film?
I think Kevin should take this one.
yeah. So the idea was mine initially, and this was like almost 8 years ago now. Um, there was going to be a planned blackout at my house and on my block. And they said, oh, from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. it's going to be blocked out. Power's going to be out. And so I was coming home, and the power hadn't gone off yet, but it was about to be. And I have this like crate by the front door, and I opened it, and it slipped out of my hand, and it went bang really loud. And for a moment, I was just like, it would be really funny if someone was on the other side, the power had just gone out, and then they hear this big bang outside, even though it was just me being an idiot and accidentally dropping the thing. And I was like, that's kind of funny. Like, you think it's scary, but it's not. And I was like, that's kind of funny. And I had nothing to do that whole night because I didn't want to use my phone because I couldn't charge it overnight. And I couldn't use my computer or anything. So I was like, well, what do you do? And I thought, maybe you could write a script or something. Maybe just kind of come up with an idea. And so I took a blank piece of paper, a pen, and a flashlight. And what came up with what ended up becoming Death Perception. And within the week, the three of us had gotten together. I pitched them the idea, and we all came together. We ironed out the basic story and the characters, and a couple years later, we decided to finally write it because we felt like we were ready enough. I think at the time we hadn't even made a feature film yet, so we kind of wanted to break that in with something a little easier. And then finally it got made, and I actually wrote the first draft of the script mostly alone because we had been kind of hurt by the fact that our last our last movie didn't really get any attention at festivals, so that kind of made it into the script. But once I'd written the first draft, we had all kind of jumped in, and it became what it was.
And what was the writing process like? How did you collaborate on the script?
So we have collaborated on dozens of projects. This was our second feature film. We have written so many times together that we really have very similar sensibilities, but different approaches to how things should work. And so those are our three brains end up being one good brain because we all kind of have our own weaknesses and our own strengths. And I think that that ends up being so it's a lot of competing ideas and the best one always wins. So with this film specifically, it was a lot of making sure everything made sense because it's a perspective movie. Each of these characters are doing things in their own timeline. We needed to make sure that all of those things lined up. So there was a really long time where we were just trying to iron out those details to make sure that, okay, we have this idea for this character in this perspective, but does that make sense with the rest of the perspectives? Does the timeline make sense? So that was a long and challenging process, but we eventually kind of got it to a place where not only were we able to get all of our individual ideas and bring it to a place where we were happy with the story beats and the character, but also it all makes sense if you like line everything up. The script is pretty airtight when it comes to what events happen in what order.
Writing comedy within a horror context can be tricky. How did you ensure that the humor would land without undermining the horror elements?
I think horror and comedy are really close. Honestly, as a genre, like I think there's a lot of horror aspects that are just kind of funny, and also creepy. I mean, I find myself watching a horror movie and laughing at things that I'm not thinking are funny, but just like, ooh, that's getting a reaction out of me. And a lot of it comes down to the perspective shifts. That's where the comedy comes from. So it's mystery and comedy, and the comedy comes from the perspective shifts.
I would also say that I would say the relationship is that the comedy actively does kill the horror by the end. Like because you're seeing the perspective of horror for most of it, and it very gradually shifts more and more to a comedic perspective. So their relationship is that they almost turn into one another. It's like the comedy slowly overtakes the movie.
So you're saying that balancing the elements of horror and comedy in the film really is not that challenging to find the right mix.
For us, the mixture was always comedy first and then horror. I think we have an easier job than I think some people might because we were working in not just horror, we're very specifically in the slasher genre. And I think that that's already a genre that a lot of people kind of have an expectation of. It's a little campy, it's a little silly. A masked guy running around with a knife almost feels quaint in 2024, like with how crazy everything gets in the world. It's like, oh, one guy's running around with a knife. I've seen that. I've seen Michael Myers. So because of that, we're able to lean into the comedy elements a little bit easier than, say, if the subject matter was a little bit darker. But we also really wanted to make sure that in the perspectives where the characters are supposed to be afraid, that it's not a joke in that moment. We're not like poking fun of when one character is being stalked by a creepy killer and this guy's a freak. We're trying to make sure that those moments feel as real as possible. So for us, finding the balance really came down to what makes sense for this character in this moment. So for certain perspectives, I think that's like why Sam Slade was saying, I think the perspective shifts helps it be easier for us in a lot of ways, because for some perspectives, comedy makes a lot more sense because this character would not feel as threatened in this situation. Whereas for other characters, we try to treat the horror as seriously as possible because for them, the horror is as real as possible.
Love it. I'm going to
On top of that,
okay, go ahead.
On top of that, one of the most important aspects of comedy and horror is timing. And those two things being related, and you nail those both down, I feel like it's pretty, not necessarily seamless, but it works together pretty well.
I'm going to talk about the cast to the cast in a minute, but I want to kind of finish this subject out. So the challenges, what some of the biggest challenges that you faced during the production of Death Perception, and how did you overcome them?
Well, Maybe I'll pass this one off to Nicole. She was the producer. She's probably a little bit more objectively able to answer this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the challenge is with shooting a horror is, it's all at night. And so, and we were trying to basically kind of within like a 2-week span, get as much of the film out as possible. We still had pickups and stuff after, but we really wanted to utilize that time to the best of our ability. And so we did a lot of actually day for night shoots. So even in the garage scene where the screening room is, it looks like night, but it was actually shot in the day. And that was to kind of, help keep everyone a little bit sane. But then we, at the end of the week, switched over to night shoots and then, kept in the night shoots. So we were really trying to be very conscious about scheduling and, making sure that because we were going fast and we had a lot to cover in each day, that we were really trying to take care of the people who were on set with us and just make sure we got everything out in the necessary time.
You don't real. Oh, sorry. I was just getting, you don't realize how short nighttime is in the middle of July until you have to do a night shoot and you realize like, in my head, it's always like, oh, nighttime, that's like a long time. But then when you're trying to get all this stuff done and you know that the sun starts to come up, not at 5 or 6 when my brain thinks it does, but at 4 is when the sun really starts to come up. It changes your perspective on what night is.
Yeah.
Did you have something more, Kevin?
Oh no, I honestly, I'm glad Nicole said that. That honestly, production wise, was the biggest struggle because it happens in one night. The movie literally happens on the same night. So we tried our best to just get all the actors, because anybody on screen, we needed them to be consistent across maybe a grand total of 30 or so days total of filming. But in terms of the bulk of filming, we did a week in June, and then we did 10 days straight in July, like 10 uninterrupted back to back, like 14-hour days back to back. And some of those were nights. And so just all trying to keep make sure if you're shaved, make sure you're shaved the same way. Your hair's this way, it's got to be the same way. If you get a blood splatter, continuity blood splatter, because it's all one night. And that was probably the biggest challenge.
Can you talk about
off? Oh, no, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's okay. You go ahead because y'all are priority.
I was just gonna say to bounce off of that, keeping all that continuity and everything. We're a really small team, and a lot of times that helps us. We're able to move pretty fast with a small team, but it's also, it's a lot of work on a lot of people, on a few people, and that's a pretty big challenge that we faced on this project too.
Yeah, we were saved by, we had 2 really great our crew is so small that you're looking at 99% of the crew, and then we had our sound operator, boom operator, and just all around magnificent guy, Chris Martinez, and then my first AC and just second camera operator, Vince Morales. Both of them were not just those roles, but also like anything that needed to get done, it kind of ended up being on them and me, because Sam Slade was off and Sam Slade obviously, but it was a lot of like moving setups with a very small crew, and that was challenging. But I think that our team worked so efficiently together that it ended up not feeling like a challenge, which was really cool. And honestly, I'm still like humbled by how great of a crew we had for how small it was.
Yeah. Sort of on that note, can you talk about the visual style of the film? Like, how did you use the cinematography, set design, special effects to enhance both the horror and comedic aspects?
Yeah. So
that's an Alec question.
Yeah, we for speed and efficiency, we shot a lot of 2 cameras. It's something I regret to this day, because you end up sacrificing a lot visually and just intentionally when you do 2 camera setups. But it was necessary for how fast we were shooting. And so on that, as far as getting like the visual style of the movie, we did a little bit of, not a little bit, a lot of bit of work in prep. We knew we were going to be shooting in these locations, so just doing, okay, like how do we want this scenario to kind of look and feel, and then I kind of just chose lighting setups for like, okay, this is what this room looks like every time we come back to this room, this is what it's got to look like. And so it was a little bit kind of easy in that regard because everything was kind of pre-set up where we know like, all right, we're going to be shooting here, know exactly how we're going to be lighting the scene. And I tried to keep the character motivation was the most important thing to me. I think when it comes to telling a story visually, I was trying to constantly get in the character's head. For the most part, I actually wasn't thinking, how can I make this scarier, which maybe is a point against the movie, but I was always trying to think, how can I make you feel like you're in this character's perspective and you're actually getting something different out of this. So like with Mark's perspective, for example, it's almost entirely handheld. And there's a reason for that. I don't necessarily want to spoil what the reason is, but that was a conscious decision of, okay, this character is going to be handheld, and the rest of the characters, you know, it's not like we don't use handheld for the rest of the movie, but for this character specifically, if I'm able to have the camera handheld, then it's going to be. Whereas for you know, like the first perspective, Wes, he's almost entirely on a stabilizer, and it's like kind of these longer walking shots, and so there's a lot of thought going into how to make these different perspectives feel different. And then as far as comedy goes, I think it's all, I don't, to me, comedy is in editing. There's shot placement. I think you know, I think of there's one shot particularly towards the end where there's kind of a stunt, the killer falls back, but it's all getting a laugh and getting a scare is all about how can you surprise the audience. And so for me, a lot of that came down to editing and pacing. And on set, we kind of just take a, if it makes us laugh, then we keep it in kind of approach to, you know, if we're going to get a shot, it's, you know, if it's funny, we're doing it. And then in editing, we really take the time to find out, okay, was it actually funny? Because sometimes you think something's funny on set, you think something's scary on set, and then you see it in the editing room. And this is where VFX and coloring can, you know, help a lot. I did both of those things on the film. And so a lot of that process is just, you know, emphasizing, you know, if we want a character to have, you know, maybe a little extension as far as VFX go with a gore shot. There's one in particular, again, towards the end of the movie that I don't want to spoil, but we knew we wanted kind of a bigger moment there. And so, again, it's all emphasizing what these moments are supposed to be feeling like. It's all servicing the story for me. So, like, coloring was you know, this is my second feature film that I've done a lot of this stuff on, so I'm definitely not a pro colorist. We're not a huge team, and doing it is a lot of trial and error. So it was just kind of getting everything to a point where it looks the way it looked in my head when we were filming it. And yeah, I think that using the VFX and the color and the sound design to really emphasize those moments of like, wham, okay, that's shocking, you know.
Yeah.
And those moments really are the ones that end up getting big reactions from the audience, which always makes me happy because it's like, okay, we put so much work into that I'm glad that it's having the effect that it's supposed to have.
Cool. So what, I know that this is going to be screened, Dances with Films, you know, coming up really soon. It's got to be really exciting. The world premiere, the midnight series in Hollywood, you know, on Friday, June 28th. And what are you most excited or nervous about regarding the audience's reaction at the world premiere?
Well, one thing we are very excited about is being part of the Midnight series. I think any audience going into that can kind of expect that the Midnight series is gonna be wacky. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be like a little bit, everyone's, you know, tired and delirious in the best way, where we're all just like in this movie, we're living in it all together. So we're really excited to be part of the Midnight series and to be at Dances with Films. They're amazing, by the way, to all their indie filmmakers. Like, they're just
They've
awesome.
been fantastic.
Yeah. And in terms of like the audience, I mean, we have a lot going on in this film. There's blood, there's sex, there's gore, there's people getting
Drugs.
chased, there's ninja stars, like just really hoping that all of those things and all that effort we put into each of those effects and all those like fun moments, that they get a reaction, a laugh or a gasp or whatever it is. We are just really looking forward to that.
Exciting. The characters in horror comedies often need to be both relatable and exaggerated. How did you develop the characters for this film? And did you draw inspiration from real life people or other fictional characters?
Every character in this movie is some version of us or people that we know. To a fault almost, where there are certain characters where I'm like, that is just that person. And I don't want to, like call anyone out or name any names, but it's just like, that's a person we know. And we're stealing this and we're going to write that in. And we have written a lot of our characters with the exact same kind of time. We find when we write, we're always doing the voices for the characters. So like we even have to, when we get to set and we start working with the actors, we almost have to detrain ourselves what they sounded like when we were writing the characters, because we don't want to like just tell the actors talk exactly like this and sound exactly like this, because that's not a super generous way of directing a scene. But we do these character voices and we develop the characters in a way that, like, for us they feel real, but also they're exaggerated enough. Like I'll use the character of Mark, for example. He's a character that is multifaceted. He is to a lot of people, depending on your life experience, you will either find his shenanigans kind of funny, but maybe a little problematic, or you hate his guts and you think that he's a disgusting creep. Both I think are valid. One is a little bit more valid than the other. And I think that we're able to get away with that because we show you his perspective. We show you what's going on through his eyes and how he sees himself. And then we also show you how those things go around, how those things are seen through other people's eyes. So for us, it's finding the voice. That's something that I think is really important with finding, because you can get away with a lot in a comedy, as long as this is purely writing. All of this falls flat if you don't have an amazing actor to play them. And I again, to kind of go back to Mark, Cody Laper, who plays Mark, is just so fucking good as sorry, I don't know, he's so freaking good at playing that character. He brings the character to life in a way where, like, he's able to portray both that kind of charming side and he's able to get really disgusting and creepy with it. And so it's finding that voice, but also the most important thing, you're dead in the water if you don't have an amazing actor to pull that off. So it's mostly the actors, honestly.
The cast was amazing. They all just did some of the best work I've ever seen from all of them.
Yeah, I wish we had more of them here in the Zoom room, but we would be all day. So the ones that we have here, we have Sam and Nicole. How did you prepare for your roles in Death Perception, and were there any unique challenges in playing a character in a horror comedy?
Yeah, well, and just to quickly say, it's Kevin played Sean and then I played Anna.
That's me.
Yeah, I'm a terrible
Kevin
actor.
played. Okay, why did I think it was Sam? Okay, it was Kevin. Sorry about that.
No worries.
I mean, yeah, for me at least, Kevin gave every single character a musical playlist, actually, that was like what the character was inspired by. And so a lot of my work, on top of figuring out who Anna was and, embodying her, was like finding the inspiration within those musical choices and like taking that into the character and understanding how she would feel in certain situations that these musical choices were inspired by in the movie, if that makes sense. You know, Anna has a crush and a love story that happens, and so like really leaning into the music for that was super super helpful. And then Anna gets chased a lot and so leaning into the more you know, kind of like upbeat, like running music really helped me embody her emotions before I even got onto set.
Love it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I to echo what she said, I made the playlists for every actor in the main cast because I just feel like music is just such an easy way to mentally, spiritually, and emotionally connect to something. And so I was like, this is, some of it is what's kind of going on in the character's head. Some of it is in the movie, this scene, if you could picture the scene, this is the kind of music that'd be playing, like to you, like if this was your life story. And so I definitely wanted to do that for all the actors. Nicole probably took the most advantage out of it because she would literally listen to one or two songs in particular before most takes. I wish we had footage of that. I'm sure we do somewhere like behind the scenes, but she would literally do it almost before every take, which was very cool to see. And yeah, for me, well, Sean is such a personal creation. When we wrote him, Sean is kind of like the little sad filmmaker inside all of us sad filmmakers. And so it's like just bringing that out, that kind of awkward. Are you watching the movie? Are you watching the movie? Do you like the thing I made? Is very much just a projection of our maybe younger, more sad, independent student filmy selves. Because I think we've all been there. You know, we all have these early projects that we thought were so good at the time, but they're just so embarrassing now, and you wish no one would watch them. And so it's like we wanted to tap into that, the early us, and I think a lot of people who are in that field can kind of relate to Sean. And so that was easy to portray because that was always there. And like the guys had said, we do the voices a lot when we're writing, and so I would typically do Sean because that's kind of how I pictured him, and then they were just like, you should just play Sean, and then eventually I did. So
You're on the set. I know because you both have so much that you do behind the scenes, but how did you maintain the balance between the serious moments, you know, all the stuff that the producing and the writing and all that, the serious moments of that, plus the horror and the lighter comedic scenes as well? How did you balance all that?
Oh my gosh, great question. For me, it was a lot of yeah, like I don't know if compartmentalizing. Like I would put on that producer hat, have a conversation with one of these guys about like, okay, this thing came up. All right, so yeah, let's maybe, why don't we do this? We'll pivot in this way or whatever. And then put that music in, try to like get all the producer stuff out of my brain and really like focus on the senses and the sensations of Anna and what she's going through, and then just like pop right in. And in terms of like the horror and comedy of it, I mean, leaning into like how Anna felt in each of those moments was so helpful for it, because Anna's freaked out at times, and then she's like having a great time trolling people. And so I I really tried to you know, tug between all of those in her scenes.
Just to bounce off that, Nicole was a fucking ninja on set. Like she would be literally putting out a fire in one moment where it's like everything's falling apart. She's ordering food, she's coordinating with an actor when they're going to get here, talking with the makeup person, like literally juggling 10 things at once. And then it'd be like, oh, Nicole, we need you to act. And she would just be like, okay, let me listen to my music for a second. and then she's on it and she's acting and she's doing great at that. It was like and obviously everyone was kind of doing that a little bit, but like Sam Slade and I were like, we're goofballs and we're kind of like just running around trying to focus on our stuff. Nicole was able to balance things. I can't balance things. I can do one thing at a time, and then but Nicole would just be like pa 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 pa, and then it would all get taken care of. Um,
Aw,
and
thanks.
I think also just like we run a very fun set. I want it. Like everyone was really having a good time. At least I saw, and that was part of what made being able to like, we're doing all this stuff and it's a lot of work, but it was also a lot of fun. So we could jump into joking around and like snapping into filming and getting some like comedic stuff. And even like filming horror stuff is the most fun thing in the world. You want to bash somebody's head in, you want to stab somebody and get blood all over the place. Like that stuff is just so much fun. Even I've never had to be in front of the camera doing that kind of stuff. Well, but it is like such a blast to film. I'm sure it's hard to act like and look like you're not having fun because there's something so like cathartic about seeing blood splatter everywhere. So I think that you know, it's just one of those things where like the comedy was super easy for us because we were just like having a good time and joking with the actors, talking about the scenes. And that was easy to slip into. And then the horror stuff was also just a bunch of fun. So that stuff was made a lot of the harder like technical part of the filmmaking easier and more bearable because we're having like it's going we're having so much fun doing this and it's so cool that like yeah, it's stressful to have to balance, you know, getting food and actor schedules and how much time we have the makeup person for, but it was stress that was worth it.
Yeah,
I seem to believe in the project.
Yeah,
Everyone on set was in fully for the project, so I think that's what added to the energy and that fun was everyone kind of believed in the final product of it.
I did have to, in my own experience, I did have to switch around a lot because you know you're directing the actors, the other actors, and sometimes you're in that scene. And so then naturally that does come up, but because I had small roles in a lot of our like short films that we had made, and which at that time we had made like something like 50 short films. I was pretty used to it, honestly. If there's like I wouldn't even say I'm the best actor we have in the cast, but if there's one thing that I feel like I can do is I can jump around pretty quick, like I can turn it on and off. In terms of the comedy, I completely agree with them in that the secret ingredient is having an insanely good cast who isn't just good at what they do, but like I reminisce all the time about being on set again and just being around such insanely funny, nice people that we're just cracking each other up and we're making jokes and we're loving what we're doing. And so that just made everything we do, including the horror, just so fun.
What about, do you have a favorite moment or memory from filming Death Perception? Like what made it special? I'm sorry this is going so long, but I have so many questions because the film is amazing and we have a lot of people here that I want to hear from. So
No,
Sure.
we're so grateful.
We're
you.
happy.
We appreciate the time.
favorite moment or
Nicole,
memory?
do you have any favorite moments? So I can think of
Okay,
mine.
I love being covered in blood. So one of mine was
All right, Nicole, let's
in a film sense. In a film sense, I love being
Right.
covered in blood. And so mine was without giving out too much spoilers, I stabbed someone and their blood gets all over my face. And it is, yes, it's technical, and you know, we only have so many takes with the equipment and everything, and you've got the makeup artist kind of like crouching down behind the side of the house, and the person who's getting stabbed is all rigged up, and so there's a lot of like technicality there, but it was so fun to just like live in the wildness of that moment. So that really, really stood out for me. And then I like, you know, gotta just have blood on my face for the rest of the night and act with that.
Yeah. Wow. Kevin?
Yeah, for me, gosh, it's so hard to choose. Like every day was just something so fun. But there was, I think my favorite moment is probably there's a bit where I have to fight another character, and it's this fight scene that technically happens twice because you see it in two different perspectives. That was probably both the greatest challenge and the most fun to film at the same time. We did it. We did the bulk of it in one long night, but we had a stunt coordinator, Jeremy Rivet. He normally actually gets paid for this kind of stuff, and we didn't have the money or the funds to do that, so we just asked him basically just to give us some tips, some pointers, and he was so lovely to do that for us. And he showed up to set, and he made our already kind of decent idea of what we were going to be like way better. He's like, no, you're going to want to lean this way, give a grunt when you do this, that lets them know you're going to punch them, and just all these tips that we would not have thought of in a million years. And so actually doing it and just rehearsing it with the guy in the killer suit, Rosenberg Jimenez, he's a really good friend of ours, and just being able to do that with him like a dance, you know, like a coordinated thing, was just so insanely cool.
It was also really fun to be.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
It was also really fun to be behind camera for that too, because camera is also, you know, part of the dance a little bit. We wanted the fight to kind of feel a little bit not visceral. You know, if you've seen the fight scene, you know it's not like supposed to be a cool fight scene, but there's enough different things between the two of them that being it behind camera was really fun as well. My favorite moment, we had two really amazing makeup effects artists, Sasha Glasser and Meg Wilbur. And Sasha had put together this head prosthetic because there's a head explosion in the film. And we knew we wanted that. We knew that a character was going to get their head bashed in at a certain point. And Meg was operating it that night. And she was like, you know, this skull, you know, it's designed to kind of like take some impacts. I don't think it's going to break the way you think it's going to break. She was like, you know, and it looked great, and it was capable of like gushing blood out, and it was really cool. And we were like, okay, well, let's do a couple takes, and we'll see. And you know, I was like, how hard can we hit it? Like, what's the thing? She was like, you can hit it as hard as you want. I don't think it's going to break. It's a really strong skull. So I walk over to Rosenberg Jimenez, and he was operating. You know, he's the guy playing the killer for most of it, and I was just like, Rosenberg, hit it as hard as you can, and we'll just keep rolling. We'll see how it goes. And
just keep hitting it over and over.
After about 7 hits, on like the 8th, there's just this sickening crunch, and everyone that was watching the shot play out kind of lurched a little bit, because it was like actually like seeing a skull crack open, and no one was really expecting it. And just watching this prosthetic skull just get slowly bashed in, and he kept going, and it kept breaking. And Meg afterwards was like, I didn't think I'm wrong. I did not think that it would break the way it did. And it's still that head bash is probably the moment in the movie that gets the biggest reaction. And I think that it's just because there's this weirdly real way that crunched, and even on set, it was like this almost sickening experience.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And so getting back to the casting, what was the process like? How did you choose the actors for their respective roles, and what qualities were you looking for?
Slade, you want to take this one?
Sure. So we had a handful of actors that we've been working with a lot, like Nicole we worked before, Cody Laper we worked with before, and you know, some mainstays. And then there was a few characters that we knew we were going to have to kind of reach out and do like a casting call for, and we got lucky with Laura and Omari, who came in and just nailed their role pretty much, like pretty last minute too. We casted them pretty close to when we were really close to shooting, because we had one actor drop out who was going to be playing Wes, and Nicole was able to fill him in with Omari. Yeah, it's really just finding actors that you can work with well and kind of already understand the sense of humor. Like, that's why we keep bringing Nicole and Cody and Kevin back to these roles, because it's already hard enough to explain how you want something done in a scene, but if they kind of already get the sense of humor, like the goal of the project, that's the best kind of crew you want as your cast.
Wonderful.
And they're just so talented, extremely talented.
Great. Yeah, I really enjoyed the film. So what does it mean to you to have Death Perception premiere at Dances with Films? We talked a little bit about it. And are there other festivals or screenings that you're planning for the film? We're winding down here, as you can tell.
For sure. It is huge for us, and I'm not being facetious. I'm not being hyperbolic. This is our first film festival we've ever been accepted to, and we've been making movies for over a decade. We're so excited about this. Like, this is like, I think when I saw the email that we got accepted, I'm so used to seeing, the standard, like, okay, we liked your film, but we can't fit it into programming this year. Maybe try again next year. That I see Dances with Films LA, and I'm like, all right, what's this one going to be? And the first paragraph, I almost don't believe what I'm reading. Like, accepted. I literally started to like tear up, and my heart started racing. Like, this isn't real. They're going to send me an email in a second. Oh, sorry, we meant to send that to the producers of Death Perspiration. That was but no, and we really have had like the best experience with Dances with Films. They've been so, like, as far as the first festival, we've heard so many stories that haven't gone as good as this, and I feel so spoiled to be premiering at a festival that has treated us so well, that cares about its filmmakers so much. When we talked, we got to meet up with the Midnight screening, with the Midnight programmer, Benny, and he said something that kind of gave me the same feeling. We were just saying thank you for screening us, and he wasn't like, oh, you're welcome or anything. He looked us in the eye and was like, well, you guys deserve to be here. You made a good movie. And like, that was like, I don't care how the screening goes, like that, just for someone to say, I thought your movie was good enough to put it in this festival, like that was like as good of a high as I need for this entire experience.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I had to read that email. You screenshotted what they sent us, and I read it like 3 times just to be sure that it was what it was saying. It was like, congratulations for not making it in. Congratulations for, like, just going through the entire thing.
Yeah,
and then I even looked through it,
these.
and I was checking to see if it was like photoshopped and Alec was trying to pull a prank on us. And I was like, this is not real. This is not happening. But after reading it like 5 times, I was like, okay, I think this is real. I don't know. I don't think he's messing with us.
Yeah,
super thankful for the opportunity, for sure.
Yeah, Dancing with Films, like when I first got it, because we submitted to a lot, and we still are waiting to hear back from at least like a dozen throughout this month and the summer. But so we haven't heard from anything else yet, but we did let them know, hey, we got the Dancing with Films premiere and so on and so forth. So we're still waiting to hear back on a lot of those, but yeah, I was talking myself out of it the whole time. I was like, well, I'm sure if we got in, it's just not that big of a festival. It's just not. There's no way. It's anybody can get in. And then the more I looked into it, I was like, which one was this? Which festival is this? And I look at the stats, and I'm like, oh no, this is a big festival. Like this, like I was trying not to believe it for the longest time, but getting in is the coolest thing in the world.
Very good. Very good. Well, we're the Hollywood Times Official is our YouTube channel. HollywoodTimes.net is our website, and the Hollywood.Times is our Instagram. So how can we find all of you and the film? Our readers and our followers want to know.
Yeah, there's a movie Instagram, so Death Perception Movie, people can follow, as well as so these guys here are part of Uncle Mikki Productions, so you can also follow them at Uncle Mikki Productions, both YouTube channel and on Instagram. And then personally, Instagram at Lil_Jinja. So it's me.
Yeah, the best place to find us is Uncle Mikki Productions on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, basically everywhere you can find somebody. Yeah, at Uncle Mikki Productions.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. This was a lot of fun. And thank you for all your creativity with the film. Have a great time. Hopefully we'll meet in person. And I'll have my interviewer on the red carpet. So look for her. Her name is Susan Esco. And yay, have a great time and keep up your creativity and keep us posted on what you do next, please. We would
Thank you.
we'd love to do another interview and watch your films. So yay.
So much.
Thank
I'm
you.
so glad you liked it.
Awesome.
Honestly, that means the world. I'm glad you liked it.
We
Yeah,
really appreciate your
that's it.
time too, and
Yeah.
giving us all space to chat with you.
Wonderful. Have a great rest of your day and have fun at the screening. All right.
Thank you so
You as
much. You
well.
too.
Bye-bye.
Right.